Welcome back to the broadcast. We are almost getting to the third hour of Citizen Extra, live on Citizen TV. And now to give you the latest from the IEBC, we cross over to the Intercontinental Hotel, where IEBC Chairperson Wafula Chebukati is addressing those attending a meeting where female candidates for the August elections are meeting with IEBC officials. Let's have a listen to his speech.
The extent to which media coverage is balanced and sensitive, especially as it relates to reporting on the women who will be participating in the elections. Campaign violence can be another obstacle to women's full political participation. Security for women candidates and voters is needed to encourage full engagement. And I'm happy the CS Security has talked about it. As a commission, we have come up with a training program for the police through our Election Security Arrangement Project called ESAPS. This program will see a total of 150,000 policemen and women and other security agencies inclusive who will be trained and cascaded down to the ground for purposes of these coming elections. So we want to assure you that with our partnership with security agencies, there will be security all around you as you go on with your campaigns. In conclusion, I want to say that there needs to be general acknowledgement that women in decision making are an asset to society. It's hoped that as many women as possible will take their rightful place and ranks in decision making in this country. I want to assure you that in my personal capacity, I stand for equality as provided for in the Constitution. I stand for the fact that all of us, men, women, are equal and that we should participate fully and exercise our political rights equally. And therefore, as a commission, we also stand for the same principle. And I want to wish you well, those of you who are aspirants. I wish you well in your campaigns. Please remember that IEBC stands for free, fair and credible election, and that if you are harassed, I want to repeat, please bring your complaints to us, and the Code of Conduct Enforcement Committee will look into your complaints and punish the perpetrators of violence. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Well, that was the tail end of a speech by IEBC Chairperson Wafula Chebukati talking to women candidates who will be vying, of course, on the 8th of August. And assuring them that should they have any issues in the run-up to the elections or even on the day, that the IEBC is more than willing to listen to their complaints or any questions that they may have as well, and that he and of course the IEBC believe in equality as well. At the same function, just a bit earlier on, Interior Security CS Gaiseri also addressed those who are in attendance, and he let them know that they have identified 20 hotspot counties and are going to ensure that women coming from these counties get the necessary security. In addition, he also added that Jubilee and NASA rallies, according to how he perceives it, should not be held close to each other. If Jubilee is in Eastern, Quad should be in Western, and he believes this will help in the security situation when it comes to political campaigns. We'll give you more updates about that particular function as and when we get it. But for now, Stephen Leto is on standby. We know that the National Super Alliance today took its foray into Maasai land with rallies slated for Loitoktok and Kitengela town. To give us a clearer picture of NASA's agenda today and of course the topic of land, we cross over to Stephen Leto. Stephen, good morning, and where are you and what's the latest?
Well, a very good morning to you, Wahiga Maura, there in studio live from Loitoktok, where the NASA brigade is expected to tour this region today in search for votes ahead of the August 8 polls. Remember, they were in Kajiado West last week, and this week this is Kajiado South, where they are trying to take their forays and have a charm offensive to ensure that they get a chunk of the votes in Maasai land that is in Kajiado South. Remember, this is a constituency being represented by Kato Ole Metito, the majority whip in the National Assembly, and appointment of President Uhuru Uhuru Kenyatta in the Jubilee Party representing the Kajiado region. And so a lot is being expected today. As you can see behind me, preparations are underway to receive the NASA Pentagon. We are also aware that they have lined up a series of rallies across Kajiado South constituency. For instance, they will kick off their rally here at Kimana, where we are right now, and then they will head to Loitoktok. Then from Loitoktok, they will again make another U-turn and head. We are told that they were planning even to have one stopover at Emali before they conclude or they wrap up their day in Kitengela, whereby they will be having their major rally in KCB grounds. And so remember, there is this issue of land that that has really brought a lot of debate from both the political divide. Some saying that ODM leader Raila Odinga has made incitement or really has uttered incitement remarks when he was in Lodokilani last weekend, and where he said that, you know, the people living in that area, basically the Maasai, should stop selling their land because it is triggering poverty in their region. And that is what has triggered a lot of debate. That, of course, expected here today, Kajiado South being one of the areas that is being hit by land selling, and that we are expecting that. And also all the same, the host, who is Governor David Nkedianye, will be also drumming support for himself alongside all the other 5 Pentagon members of the National Super Alliance, as well as, remember, this is one of the regions that is having a hotly contested race for the gubernatorial seat. Remember, David Nkedianye, who is the incumbent governor, is facing off with Joseph Olelenku, the former cabinet secretary for Interior, and also is flying the Jubilee Party flag. This being considered one of his strongholds, and Nkedianye today trying to come and launch his campaigns in this southern part of Kajiado, trying to woo voters to vote for his re-election, as well as vote for Raila Odinga as the National Super Alliance candidate. Wahiga.
We know that NASA were in that part of the country just last week. They're back again today. What is at stake in terms of numbers? They're looking for votes. Are you able to give us some of the numbers that they can potentially woo from that particular county?
Well, Waiga, from the perspective of the August 8th general election, Kajiado County as a whole has close to about 500,000 registered voters to participate in the August 8th polls, and so that 500,000 votes is what is up for grab. And remember, the CORD coalition, which is now the National Super Alliance, in 2013 performed not really well in Kajiado County in terms of getting several parliamentary seats and the senatorial seats. They got only the gubernatorial seat and very few MCAs in this county, and one parliamentary seat, that is a member of parliament for Kajiado Central. Before it was Joseph Nkaiseri of ODM, and then after the by-election, Memusi Kanchori of ODM flew with the Kajiado Central, that being the only opposition seat that is in Kajiado County. And that is what the National Super Alliance is trying to tilt the scales to their advantage. What they are saying, this is one of the constituencies that they are eyeing. And so one thing they want to drum up support for their candidates, both at the parliamentary seat as well as the county assembly seat in Kajiado South, as well as that they did a similar thing in Kajiado West, Kajiado North, and Kajiado Central. Remember, they are also keen on retaining the gubernatorial seat as well as having the woman representative seat and the senatorial seat that is now in the Jubilee side of the coalition. And so that is what is up for grab here. And remember the numbers. This is being considered as one of the swing vote counties that is being, having a nearly 50-50 battle between NASA and Jubilee Party. And so the forays that the National Super Alliance is trying to make from last week and this week is trying to solidify their support as well as raid their opponents. Remember, in Kajiado West last week, they received Taraya Olekores, who was a Jubilee appointment in Kajiado West and Kajiado County as a whole, and that being an advantage to them. And so what they are doing is trying to woo more leaders in the Jubilee Party to jump ship and come to the National Super Alliance. And so a lot is up for grab, and so should they then be able to convince some of the voters to cross over to this side, then there will be a tilt of scales. And of course, what they have been saying, that should they take over the government in September, then it will mean that they will need a majority of seats in parliament, and that is what they are also working on at a grassroots level. Wahiga.
Thank you so much, Stephen Leto. Clearly lots at stake in Kajiado County, and of course any minute now we expect the NASA Brigade there to begin a series of rallies. They'll visit various places, and we'll keep you updated on the activities there as and when we get those updates. But now let me re-engage my panel in studio, and now we are joined by Anthony Kibagendi, a political analyst. Welcome to the program. But we still remain with David Osiani, public policy consultant, and Sandra Ochola as well, a governance analyst, and as we carry on with this debate. Now we're talking matters IEBC, but before that, we know that right now a meeting is going on at the Intercontinental Hotel between the IEBC and women candidates who will be vying on August 8th. And some statistics coming out of that meeting, and this is for you, Sandra, indicate that only 9% of candidates are women in this year's polls. Now we know that a lot of people expressed interest in this. I'm not sure of the final number, and I'm also not able to compare with 2013. When you hear the term, or when you hear the figure 9%, is that encouraging? Does that sound like is what it should be, or are we still doing badly in terms of empowering women on the political front? Sandra?
9 is a very low number, and particularly for the very, let me call them serious, the very serious positions like governor and senator. And I think as a country we still need to do a lot, because the same issues that we've been dealing with before are the same ones that we are still experiencing. Women lack the financial muscle, majority of them lack the financial muscle to participate fully in elections. Then there are the patriarchal issues and violence, like what we see during the nomination process, which more or less deter women from fully participating in election processes. And so what you're likely to see is more women being nominated, which is something that has also been put to question as to whether women should be their own agents in terms of ensuring that they get to more numbers get to parliament, and once they get to parliament they're able to push for the issues that that they want addressed. So I will agree, we are getting there, but we still have a lot more to do to get there. And perhaps some of the things we need to address are from the grassroots levels, where we are nurturing young politicians from a very young age and ensuring that we are working with other institutions and other stakeholders in addressing or rather in ensuring that we have women. One thing I saw during that might ideally be hard to deal with in the long run were the double standards that are even being employed as we even during the campaign period. I saw it was all over social media, and you could see it even on the posters, where women were being vilified. Their dressing, their stature, which is they've been put at they're being subjected to different standards, so to speak, than the men. And yet from my perspective, everyone was selling something. Others were selling wealth, others were selling ideas, others were selling totally different things. But women are being held at a totally different standard. But then I also think that as women we need to ensure that we are also asking for much more than we are being given. And one phenomenon that I've realized is when certain male politicians, they have warembo na. And I was asking myself where they
help the cause.
Yes, and where the female politicians, they could have vijana na, you know, so we don't have much of that. But even if you're going to appear as supporting a candidate, other issues emerge if you're going to take that position, where now you are reduced to a flower within that structure, without you having the skills and tools for you to demand for much more. So there's nothing wrong with that, but I think as women, regardless of where you've been planted, we should be able to flourish from that end and demand much more than we are getting. Are you able
to, do you have a rough idea of 3 or 4 crucial or key barriers that slow down the progress of women getting into politics? And do you have any examples that you could tell us? Do you have friends or people you know that had indicated that they'll be on the ballot paper come August 8th, but right now they've dropped out for one reason or the other? Well, help us personalize this discussion.
Violence is pretty key, and unless as a woman you have your bodyguards, so to speak, individuals who can speak for you, because they say politics is very, very, very murky when you get to a certain level. And I know of individuals who've been subjected to violence and intimidation because of the positions they took. And then of course there's the money factor. if you don't have enough money, then there's a high chance that you might not be able to meet the logistic requirements. And we saw that with, if I can remember quite well, there's a lady who's vying for senator, and you have the newspapers printing stories about where the source of her wealth, and insinuations, other insinuations that, in my perspective, are not really nice as regards to painting a different image of a woman and painting a different image of an individual. And then, of course, there are the other particular issues like what I've mentioned at a personal level, where women are again held in different standards. So those are the three key ones for me: violence, social and cultural considerations, and limited financial resources that continue to bar women from effectively participating in political activities. Okay,
Anthony, I'll be bringing you into the discussion shortly, but for you, David, a couple of months, should be a month or two ago, Anne Kiguta hosted Esther Passaris, who's vying for ODM Women Rep in Nairobi, and she made some statements that were, that really stood out in that interview. She said that for her and her journey in politics, it's been a case where there are times when she's been forced to suggest ideas to male politicians who she's working with, and then allow that male politician to own that idea, and that's the only way to get development. She feels that for women, they cannot be straightforward with their intentions. They have to, in a sense, skirt their way around, allow others to shine with their own ideas, and that's the only way to make it in politics. It raised a lot of questions then for you when you hear such statements, when you look at the fact that we only have 9% of women candidates on August 8th on the ballot paper. What does that bring to mind? Does that worry you? Does that concern you?
It's still the patrimonial, or as Sandra refers to it, the patriarchal system. The African system is quite patrimonial. It's chauvinistic. It gives the man, sadly, it gives the man the upper hand in most of these things. It makes the woman fear to even engage in the contest. Naturally, therefore, even the opportunities for fundraising for the female kind is not as much as the man. So when I hear 9%, I feel a little bad, because the Constitution envisions a third of gender at every institution, including Parliament. So 9% is very far way off from 33%, which means we still have a lot of work to do. But part of it is to change our value systems, change our thinking processes, try to look at a woman as not a symbol of the weaker gender, but rather as equally capable people. I mean, Theresa May is the Prime Minister of the UK, one of the greatest countries economically in the world. And I think there are many other women. Before her, there was Margaret Thatcher. The President of Luxembourg currently is a female. And there are many others to borrow from. So we should encourage our young people. But right from young ages, our children need to be empowered. Our daughters need to be told, you know what, you're just as equal as they are. And that then will inform steps taken in the future. Until then, we're still going to end up with women just seen as a symbol of, unfortunately, sex, or something like we have Warembona. That's the job they think the women can do. We're still going to resign and see them merely as emblems of household chores and stuff like that. But it's time we change that. So I'm quite disappointed that it's only 9%. But I hope for the best. And I wish the women running for office in this election, I really wish all of them could go through.
Anthony, it's a bit late now to come up with solutions to change that 9% and take it up to maybe 15%. But as we look towards the 2022 polls, what kind of steps do you think Kenyans need to take from a legislative perspective when it comes to civic education to ensure that more women, number one, get interested in politics, because politics determines how we live our lives to a greater extent, but in addition, receive necessary support to be able to make it, because support is the other issue as well. Anthony.
Great. Now, on the issue of women, first, when you talk about legislative, that is a no-no. We should not force people into positions. People should actually be elected genuinely, and what we should be talking about is capacity building and civic education, whereby we educate the masses about the importance of electing women. We know in terms of accountability, women are much, much better. And then we also encourage women to go through training so that we can have strong women taking over leadership in various positions. If you look at the journey that Charity Ngilu has walked, look at Martha Karua and the various other women, it tells you it takes a lot for a woman to actually stand out. It takes a lot for a woman to be heard. Recently, I saw there's this lady, Mishi Mboko, I think from Malindi, who has actually decided she'll not run as a women representative, but will go for an MP.
Aisha Juma.
Aisha Juma, sorry. Yeah. She decided to run as an MP, a member of parliament, and she trounced her opponent massively. That should be able to tell that people are beginning to believe in women. I remember myself and David were student leaders at the university, and the ladies that were also student leaders then didn't pursue the path the two of us have pursued. A majority of them got into the corporate world and pursued other careers. And that is where we are saying at the university level, the women who are student leaders should quickly be put into the political leadership training program, which fortunately for women, it goes beyond just during the campaign period. It goes even after, up to after, because of the emotional challenges that women face after the elections. That is when they lose, and the turmoil they go through in terms of violence and abuse. And if we can start that process at the university level and encourage people to actually run for political seats, that will do a great will bring change. Another thing, you realize when women get nominated as MCAs or as MPs or senators, they should be able to gather enough courage, enough resources, so that they can actually go out in the coming election and run for political seats, so that they can leave those seats for other people. Now, for other women to be nominated. Now you realize a majority of those who are nominated still want to be nominated. An example is in Kisii County. We had some women who are nominated as an MCA and two MCAs. Again, they are in the list. One is going to be nominated as an MCA and the other one probably as a senator, which is unfortunate. They have gathered enough experience, they have gathered enough resources. They should be able to run so that those positions can be left for other women. And I believe in terms of culture, that is where I say, even in Nairobi, we should be able, Nairobi we do not have much cultural, what can I call it? We are not in the rural constituencies. So in Nairobi, these are areas we should be able to see women get elected. But again, as my sister said, in Nairobi is again where you'll meet the most ferocious violence. It is in Nairobi that you meet demands in terms of money are just too high.
So they have to work.
They have to work double,
2-3 times harder to
be able to win. You have to ride on a certain wave. Even this women rep position, were it not for that it is earmarked for them, I believe we wouldn't even have a woman elected in Nairobi.
And we might not even have that 9%. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Wahiga, I think we need to know, affirmative action came to try and, achieve equity in political processes so that the women involvement is enhanced, so that they have, because the plane is generally tilted against the womankind in this context, and I mean in Kenya and in Africa. We are not yet entirely divorced from the thinking that resigns the woman to the kitchen, and it's unfortunate. I hope we are able to. So it's going to be a moment by moment thing. Access, for example, access to resources to be able to do the campaign. The man has a fairer chance to these resources, a fairer access, as opposed to the womankind. It's common sense. Even when we reign, and I'm glad he brings it up, even when we reign for politics in campus, back in the day, you'd realize there were only positions earmarked for them. That's why ladies like Cecily Mbarire, who ended up becoming, chairpersons of their students' union, must be commended, because then in Sonu you'd have, the treasurer role and the vice chair academic affairs is for the ladies, so the others are not for them. They would find a problem, and it's still informed by that thinking process.
But some are trying to break the glass ceiling.
Some are trying to break the glass ceiling. You have Millie Odhiambo, Cecily Mbarire, Martha Karua, Anne Waiguru. There are many, Mishi Juma. named Aisha Jumwa, I mean Mishimboko, they have decided, you know what, we are going to get into this mud, we are going to fight off and show the world. Sometimes they say what a man can do, a woman can do better. I argue with that though, but they've done a good job.
More if I may, speaking on behalf of my fellow women, we are a powerful
Today you hold brief for them because you're the only one represented here.
Let me hold brief.
Yes,
we are a powerful lot. The problem is majority of us are yet to identify with that power and are yet to know how to use that power. And I think when we talk of using it, the perception has been that we have to change who we are, change our methods of doing things so that we are equally aggressive, we are equally loud, but not all women are like that. We have all totally different purview of or methods of doing things that not necessarily have to make us masculine, for that matter.
Sally Kosgei was ladylike.
Yeah, so, and besides that, Mwaura, there's also the aspect of what do we do with those positions once we get them. Because what is selling around is that, like David has said, that women can do it better, but then people get very disillusioned once those positions are given, and they are equally as bad or worse than their male counterparts who held those positions before, tragically. So I think those are the two things. Realize who you are, what you are able to deliver, work with what you have, and once you get there, please deliver, to ensure that even for the other women, you are creating foundations and platforms through which they can prosper. And from my perspective, this has nothing to do from a moral perspective. It's more of what you are doing while in office and what you're able to deliver for the betterment of the people who took you to power.
David, I want you to respond to something that Anthony said.
Yes.
Anthony said we've seen cases where women are given nomination posts, whether at the MCA, MP, senatorial stage, and when it comes to a subsequent election, they choose to remain there. They still want to be nominated. Now it's a democratic right. They can do it. But don't you feel that they are then pulling back the cause of women by doing so?
I agree with Anthony. You see, the nomination slots, as envisaged in the Constitution, are supposed to be an affirmative action in trying to involve as many women as possible in the political process. Now, the women rep seat, for example, if it were my opinion, and I really wish that the committee of experts on the Constitution had added a caveat, so that then you'd have a women rep running for 5 years. She has been on the training ground, she's gotten the experience, and let another woman come to the scene. You know, just like we have had Aisha Jumwa, who is brought as an example, do it. She was in the scene as a women rep for Kilifi County and decided, I am done with the training, let me go and apply what I have learned. So when you have people who have been nominated in the previous dispensation, and then you have their names come up again, you are just locking out all the other women who have potential. And I really hope that our parties are able to look into that, especially as pertains nominations, because we are done with the nomination process, the party list nominations, and ensure that those who had a chance can say, adios, it was nice doing it, let's go and do our role elsewhere.
I could not have put it better myself. Anthony, late last year, we saw Hillary Rodham Clinton coming this close to becoming the first female president of the United States. It's taken that long for a democracy like America, which has been in existence for over 100 years. Kenya, we are barely 50. How long do you think it will take for us to have a credible candidate? By credible, I mean someone who actually shows a real chance of getting to State House. Not that those who've vied before have not, but someone who can really be able to whip up the masses and get as close as possible to State House and even take that seat. How long do you think that will take for a young democracy like ours?
That will depend on how either Martha Karua and Waiguru or Ngilu or Wavinya Ndeti perform in the coming election. Are you
seeing them aspiring further, or you're saying in terms of opening the door?
They'll open the space, and again, they are the only ones who stand a chance. For you to run as president, you need to be known. There is something we call name and face recognition. You realize they are the only women that can be recognizable across the country, especially even if it's in the urban centers only. So it depends on how they'll perform. And again, I'm looking at Martha Karua and Ngilu as people who stand out and who've been there longer and who understand the national terrain, because they've run before. And I believe someone like Charity Ngilu got impressive votes when she ran the first time, and even Martha Karua put up a very good fight, although that time the odds were extremely against her, because the stakes were too high for Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta and Raila Odinga in 2013. And hence, I'm looking at the two as being people who can be able to push to be able either to be running mates for presidential candidates or actually go for the presidency.
Sandra, can I also get you to answer that same question? How long before we can expect to see something of that sort, where a female presidential candidate has a very, very good chance of making it to State House?
I'd give it...
You want to be daring and give it a time frame?
Yes, I'd give it 10...
I hope you're not a betting person. Go ahead, you give it?
I'd give it one or two decades. And I'm saying this because unlike the previous election institutions we had, now we had devolution that is now expanding this space. And you can see, as much as we don't have women going for the governors and the top positions, you have a good number of them starting at the grassroots level and ensuring that they are bidding their time to take up bigger positions in the future. And so it will take time, those 2 decades in my estimation. But during this period, we really need to work hard as a constituency to ensure that we have the numbers, we have the right mindset, and we have the skills to ensure that we're able to achieve that goal.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. Well, I think it's time now to switch gears and take a look at another topic. We've been talking about women in politics, of course, bearing in mind as we speak, female candidates who will be vying on August 8th, or whose names will be on the ballot paper come August 8th, are currently meeting the IEBC, and we were surprised by statistics showing that only 9% of the total candidates who are vying in Kenya at the moment are women, and that necessitated that particular discussion. But let's now talk about the IEBC itself. 2 big issues in regards to that. First of all, we know that in the docket today, the IEBC has summoned 15 people over concerns of breach of electoral code of conduct, and that's something we will touch on. We had also talked about that in the first hour of Citizen Extra. But in addition, still at the polls body, the list of candidates expected to take part in this year's elections will be gazetted today. And many are asking what happens to the candidates who are unopposed, and what happens to those whose cases are before appeals or with pending appeals as well. And that's where I want to begin this discussion. Let me start with you again, David.
Yes.
Do you have any idea of how this will be resolved? If they release that list today, what should we expect in terms of candidates who are unopposed? But what should we expect as well in terms of candidates who have pending appeals?
Well, in my other life, I will study law pretty soon, but I bet the law will reign supreme. Should the courts be able to make a judgment in the favor of another candidate different from the one who's been gazetted, then I think it's only but obvious that the IEBC will be forced to comply. I am, however, worried of if they were to make this judgment late after the names have been submitted for printing.
Right.
And so that's where we will need, the lobby groups like LSK need to try to work hard to push for an expedited process in conclusion of these matters in court, so that then we are able to have this dealt with once and for all, and say, if you come beyond this point, we are sorry, we are unable to do much because the printing has to go on, and we will not change that for one person. Yeah.
Sandra, I know we've already talked about women in politics, but I'll bring up Wavinya Ndeti because I know all eyes will be on her even as we wait for the gazetting of those names. Now, we know that the IEBC had attempted to bar her, and she had put up a case saying, the IEBC, okay, let me start with the IEBC's argument. They were saying that Wavinya employed some sort of political mischief, which was hatched by the Wiper Party to circumvent party resignation. But the former assistant minister maintained that she followed the law and ensured that she was in Wiper Party's list before the deadline set by the IEBC. This might be speculative, but do you think she should be worried?
Sorry?
This might be speculative, but should she be worried? IEBC gazetting its names very soon, hopefully today, but she still has a pending appeal, she still has a matter. Do you think she should be worried, or once your name is in that list, then you're home safe?
Well, it's not a given that once your name is in the list, it's a given that you will go for the elections. Of course, there are certain issues that may come up, but what is on everyone's mind is the timing, because the IBC has its own timelines, and even the courts themselves, they have their own timelines that they'd like to meet, and even for the candidates, they have their own timelines that they'd like to meet before the election process begins. And so, from my perspective, this should be something that, as a community, we need to work through, so that we have our systems and structures in place to ensure we are not disadvantaging. Is that a word?
Yes.
You're teaching us new English words here.
Yes, we are not putting candidates at a disadvantage, and ensuring that our processes are well oiled to ensure that we have candidates that people are getting value for their time and value for their money. So for Wavinya Ndeti, I wish her all the best. She's tough, she's hopeful, and we hope the processes will go on well for her.
Andrew, your thoughts? Anthony, sorry, your thoughts?
What I can say is, you know, the Constitution is very clear on the timelines, and IEBC as well has their own regulations that they use to actually manage this process. And hence, I believe they'll be following the laid down procedures. And now, the issues that particularly are before the courts should be expedited. And the court should be able to know that if they don't do things within the timelines, they'll be holding a lot of people back. And what I can say at this point is that going forward, why we have these appeals and all that is that parties need to be empowered so that they are able to actually do free and fair nominations, to the extent that those who lose carry their hands and say, we lost fairly, and there's nothing we can do, and we have to support the candidate that actually won. And that way, we'll not be having all these issues running after the nominations.
So you think that's the way, even as we look towards the 2022 elections, just to sort of the timelines?
Yeah. In fact, if I would have gone to Parliament, the first thing I would be looking at is bring a bill that purely focuses on elections, nominations for political parties. So that, because what we saw were purely a sham.
Give us a hint of what your bill would look like.
Okay, I was not prepared for that, but
okay.
That is one of the things we would have focused with my friend David, because he was also a victim, such that we have free, fair, credible elections. Like now, we are making so much noise about IEBC contracting a company in Dubai to print nomination papers. Yet, we believed in ourselves and printed nomination papers locally for the nominations. We print our money locally. So you ask yourself, why should we doubt ourselves to the extent that we give even ballot papers to be printed across the border? And these are some of the things we need to look at, and the procedures, the timelines in terms of when nominations should be done and who should be in charge. Because if you look at like Kisii County, for example, ODM nominations, everything was given to the governor, who decided to deal with people like myself who do not believe in him.
Can you prove those allegations?
Yes, that one I can prove even in a court
of law.
Yes, but because of raising issues to do with corruption and things like that, you get sidelined, and they handpick their people purely who will help them actualize their unfortunate plans, you know.
And so that's why for you, you'd be keen to introduce a bill that strictly deals with nominations.
Nominations, so that we get the best leaders for the people.
David, I'm sure you'll want to respond to that, but before you do, yesterday in Kangemi at a rally, certain sections of the media report that Raila continued to accuse IEBC bosses of plotting, you know, to rig the poll, of unpreparedness generally. But what we saw in this case, whereas in the past IEBC have been quick to reply or to respond to such allegations and accusations, this time round we are into the second day and no response. Has IEBC decided now that their policy is going to be turn a deaf ear to any accusations or allegations and just carry on with their work?
Waiga, the last time I was here, I urged IEBC to seek a middle ground with the leader of NASA, for the simple reason that however good their job is and however above par it could be, when there are questions to which there are no answers, or what may be called allegations, and no one owns up to them, then there is a problem. And they need to understand that should these allegations by the Premier, the ex-Premier, be true, then there is a need to be very worried, even in the Jubilee basis. Because if the ex-Prime Minister, if Honorable Raila Odinga, is stating that there is the risk of surplus ballot papers being printed, then people like Honorable Mandago should be very afraid, because the same people who have been on different sides with them on the political aisle may be the ones that are being alleged to be in charge of this process. The likes of Keter and Sudi must be very afraid and say, wait a minute, let's question this. Because you and I know that the Honorable Raila Odinga said that the owners of Al Ghurair had a meeting with the president. There was a local meeting which was clarified to have been a delegation sent by the Dubai Chamber of Commerce. But he also said there was a meeting in Dubai, and the president has not refuted these allegations. The question then is, why hasn't he refuted? Could it be true? Could there be a basis? I hope not. But even if not, the IEBC must assure him, because he is a major stakeholder in the upcoming process on the 8th, must assure him that this will be fair. So to treat him with contempt and to just say, come on, we are moving on without you, would be leading to chaos. It would be chaotic. So they need to get down with him. They need to respond to these allegations. They need to respond convincingly to these allegations, so that then we move forward as a nation. Because you have almost half, slightly more, or 10 million plus one, whatever it is, who believe that this word is true.
Sandra, let me ask you, let's talk about crisis or potential crisis.
Yeah.
Different schools of thought have different views on how one should handle a crisis. One school of thought says, ignore the crisis, let it blow over. And in the case of Kenyans, people say that when Kenyans are angry, they're angry for a day or two. And especially when you look at on social media, they'll talk about an issue for a day or two, but by the next week that matter is forgotten. Another school of thought is that as soon as you find yourself in a crisis, and for this we're using IBC as an example, issue a press statement, come out clearly, answer all questions, demystify any of the rumors by giving the facts, and you move away from that. Do you think IBC, by at this point choosing to quote-unquote remain mum, and we haven't had them respond, maybe they will later in the day, to some of the allegations made by NASA presidential candidate Raila yesterday in Kangemi, do you think that they have chosen this other strategy, and is that wise for them?
Well, like you say, that's plenty of speculation. I'd also joined in and said yes and no affairs rather, because perhaps the IBC has gotten to the point where it's saying that we have more important things to deal with, we're running against time and we need to move on. And a statement that David has said, that they might not be very open to seeking a middle ground, because perhaps they've realized there's no middle ground with an individual who's using such platforms and such issues to gather votes, because for him is in a political moment, and he'll capitalize on anything he finds. But then I also agree with you on the fact that IBC should work hard at appearing more proactive and reactive in its issues. And one thing I've always maintained is that IBC hasn't done so well as far as communication is concerned. So that in my perspective, they should have had, let me not call it a body, but a group of individuals who've been mandated with firefighting and communicating to people on an hourly, on an hourly or a daily basis where need be, so that the public is kept abreast of what, not only what is happening or defending, but on what it's doing on a daily basis, so that we know, we are aware of who IBC is, what activities is taking place, and that to a large extent will also deal with all these issues about its preparedness and foster public confidence in its activities.
I could hear David whispering that maybe even a spokesperson could have helped, but judging by what we've seen in America with White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer, it always doesn't go well, David. But that's a topic for another day. Anthony also bringing in on this, 48 days to the polls. What should IBC be focusing on?
IBC should be focusing on building public trust, public confidence. that is the only way we can believe that they'll hold a free, fair and credible election. And when a presidential candidate of Raila Odinga's stature actually raises a query, that is something that is urgent, that needs to be dealt with immediately, because we know the emotions he raises by his utterances, and that can actually bring trouble to our country. And hence, when such issues are raised, they should not brush them aside or sweep them under the carpet. That is the reason they have a PR department. And this PR department should constantly be on the lookout on issues that are being raised by especially the presidential candidates and even the public, so that they are able to either communicate with the public through their Twitter account or through their Facebook, and they need to also have a YouTube channel, so that they continually feed Kenyans with necessary information that will help build public confidence. We know they have an enormous task ahead of them, but that is part of what they need to be doing through and through. Okay. On a related, I don't know if this is correct English, related but different matter, and this will interest you, David and Anthony, bearing in mind you shelved your political ambitions for now. We are told that close to 10,000 hopefuls, among them party primary losers, are seeking nomination to be lawmakers. A big headline in one of our papers today. I don't know if any of you are part of that 10,000. I will not put you on the spot on TV. My question is this a case of Kenyans looking for jobs, or are these people who want to serve? And maybe I could start with you, David.
I think there's some of us, and I'm part of the list, I must say.
Oh, okay.
And I hope I get the chance to represent these good Kenyans in the august house. Be that as it may, I bet some of them are passionate about leadership, the desire to transform lives, to have that space from which you can make policies or contribute to the making of policies that touch on the lives of the Kenyans. Some of us are leaders by calling. It's what we practice. It's not politicians. In fact, I take offense when I'm called a politician. I have to quickly rectify that and tell them, no, 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 I am a political leader. And then others are there because, you know, people look for these offices for different reasons. Some seek power, some seek to lead. Those who seek power seek it for different reasons. Some to do business, some to protect their wealth. Those who seek to lead, seek it. So it's a complicated thing. Others look for jobs. It's just a salary they want. All right? So I really hope that those of us who have made an application for consideration, and I'm hopeful I will be one of them, thankfully, I pray, those of us who get these opportunities will be keen to step in and contribute to transforming the lives of Kenyans, to speak truth to power, to be able to take a clear standpoint even when it is against their parties, and be honest. Honesty must be their hallmark. They must be the epitomes of what good leaders are. There's a word that goes, God just needs a few good men, Wahiga.
Let me also get Anthony to let me ask you this. Almost 10,000 names. Surprising, or is it a sign of where we are with so many interested in holding political office?
You realize even before nominations we had so many people who wanted to run for political office, people who presented themselves for the nominations, and what we are seeing is just a spillover. A majority of those who were unfairly rigged out during the nominations, and those some who actually lost fairly, are the people mainly who have applied to be nominated. As my brother said, there are those who have the drive, who have the passion, who have what I can call the excitement to serve and to lead, who have applied. And there are others, as you said, who are purely job hunting, which is very hard, particularly if you are not known within the party, by the party owners, that is. Luckily enough, David Osiani is known by the owners of the party he belongs to.
No, I think people must have exhibited some kind of leadership.
Yes,
if you're going to want to be a leader and you've never been a class monitor, there's a problem. There's a problem. A fundamental problem.
I want to ask Sandra to give us a rough idea. I don't know if you're also part of the 10,000. You don't have to answer that on TV. But my question to you is, how should parties vet who is a suitable candidate and who isn't? What criteria should they use from a governance perspective?
Well, I think we already have that in our constitution and also in the laws we have, like the Leadership and Integrity Act, and also the parties themselves, they have their own internal constitutions that they need to follow. But then generally, to ask the why question, why do you want to vie for a particular position? And as David has rightly put it, there are various motivations for it. Others it's money, others it's power, others it's fame. And secondly, what's your ideology? Because that is normally one of the things that I think as a community we failed in. We just do not have a vision for our country, and even if we do, it's not the kind that are able to drive people towards where we need to be as far as peace and development is concerned. And third is, what are you bringing to the table within that political party? And majority of times, unfortunately, most of the things that political parties are asking for is money. They're asking for numbers, regardless of how and where you are going to get them. And you see, this is what most times disenfranchises young politicians, as David and Andrew, or is it Anthony? As David as Anthony. And so I think, as we were speaking, one of the things I was thinking through is, where do we need to start the conversation about changing our leadership style and leadership culture? Is it within our school systems, where we are starting with the young people and saying we are trying to inculcate different cultures from what we have, where we are building vision, we are building ideology, we are building leaders who are committed to the bigger vision of the country? Or is it within political parties, where we are saying, even with these laws and taking from what happened during the nomination period, is it the political parties that we are still going to use as vehicles for driving change within our community? Or is it within the legislature, once these individuals have been elected, are we going to empower citizens to hold them accountable in delivering what they are? So I think that is a conversation we need to have, because truly we have a leadership crisis in this country. Yes.
Well, shortly we'll be crossing over. We have two different functions that we're keeping eyes on. First things first, we know that soon there's a function going on in Mombasa, where Kenya Secondary School Heads Association are holding their annual conference. We'll be listening into that any minute now. But in addition, in Nairobi at Capitol Hill, NASA presidential candidate Raila Odinga also expected to share his address, give an address there any minute now. We're not quite sure what his agenda will be today, but as soon as he walks up to that podium, we will cross over there and be able to bring you his comments live. But for now, we carry on with our discussion in studio, and let me ask David this again, and he has declared his interest. So this might be a difficult question for him to ask, but some would say that when it comes to nominations, should we not ensure that the marginalized in our society are given priority in regards to that, as opposed to what many perceive as party leaders rewarding their supporters, You've said the word that I was avoiding. You've said it yourself, their cronies. Should we not be looking at it that way?
Then the definition of marginalized is what we need to delve into. Are the youth like myself marginalized? The answer is yes. Are women marginalized like Sandra? I'd say yes. Are the disabled marginalized? It's yes. So I am marginalized. So it needs to, it's not only about being marginalized, it's about the drive. We must get marginalized. Very good. But then, do they have the drive? What's the purpose? What informs their desire to run for office? What's their track record? Have they been entrusted with roles of leadership at different stages, even at the community level or business? Have they executed those roles with utmost distinction? Do they stand out when they do their thing? Are they talent for leadership? Are they able to get out there, stamp their feet, and achieve for the people? Or are they still, bedeviled by parochialism, narrow-mindedness, the common problem, ethnic chauvinism, not thinking outside the box and just narrowing themselves to their, positions, or their ethnic positions, or positions that benefit them? And so for me, it's yes, you're right. We should reach out to the marginalized. If we went to look for the percentage of youth that's like us, Andrew and I, who are elected, you will find it's also as worrying. I doubt it would even hit the 30% mark as well. Certainly slightly more than 9% for the womenkind, but certainly also not 33%, which should be a third.
Anthony, we don't have proof, but we heard that party leaders dangled nomination slots as incentives for aspirants to drop their bids, to step down, whatever it is. But what we know now as well is that with 10,000 hopefuls out there, that promise will not be true for anyone because the nomination slots are fewer than those who want them. Do you think this could have been handled better? Was it right for party leaders to make such promises when the truth of the matter is they will not be able to fulfill all of them?
Yeah, that is a little unfortunate because really, you know, they promised so many people that they would nominate them so that they stand down or they pull out of the race in favor of candidates that the party leaders preferred. It is one of the things that was also dangled to me, and I told them, hey, I have to go all the way because, okay, for me, I was not dealing with the party leader. It was at the county level. But again, I'm asking myself, when you dangle this opportunity, are you giving it to a deserving person, like we said, people who are marginalized? Because a majority of those who are being told this are people who are ready to actually go all the way and run for nominations. That is one. And then you'll realize a majority again of the people who get nomination slots are either, sorry to say this, girlfriends or concubines of people who are within the party machinery, who again are not marginalized. You find there are people who are well able, people who are doing their businesses, people who are in the corporate world, but now they quit their jobs to come and get into get the nomination slots, which is an unfortunate behavior that we have seen within political parties. What I would suggest, we should be able to define the name or the word marginalized, like my brother said, so that these positions actually go to those who deserve. Another thing,
I might have to cut you off there and put this conversation on hold because we need to cross over now to our mini house in Westlands, where all Catholic bishops have gathered to give a State of the Nation pastoral press statement. Let's listen in.
Integral part of Kenya's democracy state is the framework for social, economic and cultural policies. Will be respected. It is only in doing so that the Kenyans will have peaceful and credible elections. The IEBC therefore carries the greatest responsibility and must be alive to that. We wish to make our passionate appeal for sobriety, to give dialogue a chance in order to reach consensus and harmonious resolutions that may embrace different views whenever they occur of all Kenyans in all the electoral process, before, during and after election.
The principle of democracy. In his apostolic exhortation after the Synod of Bishops of Africa, His Holiness Pope Benedict XVI said that elections represent a platform for expression of people's decisions, and they are a sign of legitimacy for exercise of power. Africa Munus, number 81. Furthermore, free and fair elections provide a privileged opportunity for healthy and serene.
Well, we apologize for that. Hopefully we'll be able to take up that press conference once again as soon as we get a better signal. But we now conclude our discussion in studio with my panel: David Osiani, public policy consultant; Sandra Ochola, governance analyst; Anthony Kibagendi, political analyst. Thank you so much for making time to be on the show today. We take a short break now, but when we return, Brian Okoth brings us the day's trends.